Hey, Epiphany. Nice to see you. Happy Tuesday. How'd you make God known? How do you share that message in your life? What happened to you yesterday that caused you to engage God, the living God, the present God, the God that is bigger than we can imagine, known through the person of Jesus Christ? How'd you engage that? I'd love to hear. If you ever want to shoot me an email and let me know, please do. You can find my email on our website, epiphanyseattle.org. It's a way to look for us. We finished the chapter 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, count them, 5 chapters in the Gospel of John about Jesus at the Last Supper. And this whole section is super important because it's about the abandonment of humanity by God. How humanity has a sense that God has left them stranded. And the author, who I believe is Lazarus, and I've talked to you about this before, and if this is the first time you've heard that theory, go on our YouTube site and look up my teaching on Lazarus to better understand why I believe Lazarus is the author of the Gospel of John. He experienced the abandonment of Jesus. So, a quick little chapter 12, chapter 11, Lazarus dies. Lazarus goes and meets Jesus on the other side of this mortal life, right? Then he's drawn back to the mortal life, and he sees Jesus again. And then he's there as the beloved disciple with Jesus, right, throughout Jesus' earthly ministry. And then Jesus dies, and they're apart for 3 days. And then he outruns Peter to the tomb, and then he's with Jesus for 40 days. And then Jesus ascends, and he's abandoned him. And this abandonment causes him to go into a deep depression. He goes to Cyprus with Mary. He lives in the tombs outside of Larnaca for a long time. And then Mary comes back and sees him, and she says, "Lazarus, what are you doing? What are you doing? You've forgotten our Lord." And she reinvigorates his relationship with the risen Jesus, and he becomes the great evangelist in Cyprus. The point is he, the author, and Lazarus, understood abandonment so fundamentally that he didn't want any other person to ever have the sense that God has abandoned us. And so he gives 5 chunks in the middle of the Gospel of John to explain, 5 chapters in the middle of the Gospel of John to help explain this. And then he ends it with a prayer that says it's about our love, right? I am in you, you are in me, God is in you, and you will share God's glory. And that's then exactly what he did in Cyprus. So to know the author and to understand the outcome helps us better understand this gospel. So now we're in the last few chapters, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And this talks about what happens here, how Jesus now is going toward, in the Greek, the action is toward, he's moving, is his action, where he is moving towards the Lord. Let's begin. Gospel of John, chapter 18. After Jesus had spoken these words, he went with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. So remember, they're in the upper room, they're in Jerusalem. They come down, they come out, probably the Lion's Gate, the new gate. They go down. It's the winter, right? The Kidron Valley is probably, there's a flood. They cross. It's probably a little bit treacherous. They come up the Mount of Olives on the other side, and they go to this cave, this area where they stop to rest. And it says, now Judas, who betrayed Jesus, also knew this place because it's where they went, because Jesus often met them there with his disciples, So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with the police from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. So this is interesting. There's 3 groups that Jesus identifies that came. There is the cohort, and a cohort of Roman soldiers. It says here, doesn't call it cohort, but a detachment. But the words in Greek represents a cohort. That's 600 soldiers. So that's a lot of That's a lot of soldiers. We have the Pharisees here, which then they sort of disappear from the rest of the story. But to lend support to the unity of humanity's desire, free choice desire to get rid of God. So you have the Romans and all their power represented by you have the Sadducees, who are represented by the high priest, and you have the intellectuals and sort of the academic extremists, if you will, in the Pharisees, and they're all coming there. And Jesus, so Judas brought all of those folks, the Pharisees, and they came with lanterns and torches and weapons. And then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and he asked them. So with all of this, Jesus is not victimized by this situation. He is not the victim. He steps forward and he says, who are you looking for? Who is it that you've come to capture? Who are you looking for? So my question to you is, how do you step forward as a follower of Jesus and say, how can I own the reality of Jesus Christ in my life? And how can I step forward into whatever cultural expression I find myself, Romans or high priests, Sadducees or Pharisees, and own the reality of my character as a Christian? That's my question for you. How do you own the reality of your character as a Christian? Something to pray about. Pray for you. I love you. I think about you. Peace upon your souls.